This is on Second Thought, powered by Hook'em.com. Cedric Golden here with Taylor's favorite duck, Kirk Bowles of the Houston Chronicle. Duck, we're joined by the excellent head coach of the Texas Longhorns. Only one head coach in America has been to two straight CFPs entering 2025 season, and that is Steve Sarkisian of the Texas Longhorns. If you're watching on video, no, that is not legendary SID John Bianco. That is Steve Sarkisian. Trust. You can tell them apart. Steve, how are you today?
I'm great. How y'all doing?
Man,
We're
great.
doing awesome. Awesome. Hey, I wanted to start out by asking you, how good are you at changing diapers?
I'm okay. I got a little experience, so I'm okay.
Yeah, something you got to do, right?
That's right.
Kirk,
That's
Kirk's
right.
wife's
Humbles
Kirk,
us.
Kirk's wife's good at it too.
It humbles
It does,
us.
always. Hey, that's not true. Three boys. I paid my duties. So, well, hey, we're past spring football, and I want to just go straight to the elephant in the room, and that's a very athletic elephant in Arch Manning. Will you tailor your offense differently to take advantage of Arch's, skill set differently from Quinn?
Yeah, I think so. I mean that's I think any coach that tries to be a good coach, you try to play to the strengths of your players and play to the strengths of your team, right? And Arch's skill set is naturally a little bit different than Quinn's. Quinn obviously had a ridiculously quick delivery,
Mhm.
was a fantastic, RPO quarterback, could really throw the ball intermediately and get the ball out of his hands so quickly. And I think what we've seen from Arch in the sample size that we have from him, A, from in-game experience, but B, obviously a couple years of practice with us now. He's a very good deep ball passer. He has the ability to make a lot of the throws down the field. Um, he's got some size and athleticism to him that offer us some different things and ability to move the pocket and utilize his legs at times. And so, no different than, in 2019, we had Tua was our starting quarterback at Alabama. And Tua again was very similar to Quinn, was an excellent RPO quarterback. Um, could throw the deep ball, but I mean, man, that delivery was so quick and the ball could get out and he could get the ball in guys' hands in space and was so accurate. That was our offense and it worked and it worked really well. And the next year was Mac Jones. And Mac was more of a play action pass quarterback. And he really threw the deep in cuts, the deep outs well, threw the deep ball well. And that became our offense that year, and like I said, the previous year we were a 11 personnel with three wideouts, even a 10 personnel with four wideouts with Tua. That next year with Mac, we became a 12 personnel team because that became the strength of the team and that played to the strengths of Mac. And so, no different than this year. We'll evolve some. And I think we have a decent idea. But again, we have some new faces that are going to show up here this summer at tight end and at wide receiver. And a couple of guys coming off of injury, getting Cedric Baxter really back going this summer. So, we're going to have to see how we evolve a little offensively, but at the same time, really tapping into the strengths of Arch when it comes to the closer we get to that first game of who do we want to be offensively and how do we play to his strengths to put us in the best position to be successful.
How exciting is it for you as a play caller to be? I mean, you're like a kid in a candy store when you talk shop, and now you've got this nuclear weapon at quarterback, and he's got a different skill set than the predecessor who was wildly successful. You as a play caller, how exciting is it for you to not only uh, evolve, like you said, but to challenge this young man to take the next step in his development?
Yeah, it's fun because, offensively for us, systematically, we have a pretty wide range of offense that we can play with, right? And then as you get closer to the season, you start to really hone in on, okay, here's where we're at, here's where we're going to be, and then we can kind of get outside those lines a little bit with some nuances and things. And a lot of times when you get a new quarterback, not that you carry all of this, you still hone in, but what's in here is maybe different, some things that you haven't focused on the last couple years because it just wasn't the strength of the player that you had. And then it also allows you to do some research and just like we did the last couple years, some research and development of saying, okay, where do we want to go and who's doing it really well. Let's study those guys and let's find some things that we can contribute to the things that we do well. And so no different with Arch. We're looking at some different things and different avenues of what people are doing in the NFL or around college football to say, man, this could really add to what we think we can be pretty good at. And so that's the fun part, that's the part we always say, let's go fishing, and let's see what's out there. Let's see what people are doing. What can we add to? Let's go back to the archives a little bit. Hey, pull up, this cut up from maybe 2020 with Mac and say, man, this would be cool to get back to doing some of this stuff and different eras, different times. And it's funny when we dig real deep, right? And we start going back, we go back to some old film of a Jake Locker or a Mark Sanchez doing something. We're like that. This would be kind of fun to do. And so football generally goes in a pretty good cycle. I don't know if we'll get in the wishbone this year, but we'll see.
I'll take that bet.
Like that's what happens in football. Like the cycle that goes on, and I think we saw it more last year than ever with teams huddling. How much did we used to talk on these types of shows about no huddle offense and going fast and all this stuff, and now all of a sudden people are huddling more. Now all of a sudden people are getting under center more, right? And so the game, it's interesting how it evolves the way that it does. But that's totally the fun part for us, right? It's like we feel like like I said, we've got a pretty good menu of stuff that we feel like we can operate in. Now it's I don't want to go into every game with that Cheesecake Factory menu, right? There's something for everybody. If you go to Cheesecake Factory, there's something for everybody, right? And at some point, we need to specialize in all right, who are we? And again, we still hold on to the adage, right? The more things that we can do really well to make it hard on our opponents, sure, we want to do that, but we don't want to lose sight of what are we good at and who are we going to become. And so that's what June and July and August are for, right? Is to identify that. So come that first game and that first month of the season, as we're still tinkering with some things that we've got a pretty good understanding though of who we are.
And moving on to the spring drills and spring practice and stuff, you mentioned how many newcomers you've had.
Yeah.
Have you been able to identify some of the major contributors? I know you want to build a lot of depth and play a lot of people, but are there 3 or 4 guys that saying, well, we're going to be counting on them heavily next fall?
Yeah, I mean, I think some guys got off to a good start, and I'm always hesitant just to label he's going to play
Yeah.
because I use this example. The one year we signed those 7 offensive linemen, 6 of them were mid-years, and
Hmm.
one of them came in June, and that one was Kelvin Banks, right? And so who could
Wow.
have predicted that year he would have been the one guy of the 7 that would have been the day one starter at left tackle, right?
Right.
Of that
Right.
whole group, right? And so a couple guys had some really good springs. I think Grayson Littleton had a tremendous spring in the secondary, and he, definitely opened some eyes for, hey, what the future could be. I thought all those young receivers took turns of showing. Dalen McCutcheon, I thought remained really consistent at wide receiver. I loved where Khalil Lockett finished up spring. I think Amari Winston had a fantastic spring at tight end, and I think there's that guy's going to find his way on the field. How much he contributes, we'll see. I don't know. But again, I'd hate to leave out all these other guys who I think made strides. Cade Phillips made a bunch of strides for us, this spring. I think Justice Terry came on the second half of spring there. And so a bunch of new faces through it all. Hopefully all those guys contribute at some point in their career, right? And again, that would be amazing, right? You sign a class of 25 high school kids and they all at some point in their career are really good contributors into your program. That would be great. But I know some of them are going to contribute this year to some degree. I think some of them got off to a great start. Now we need to continue that throughout the summer. Some guys started tapping into what it really looks like, feels like later in spring, and now we need to build on that in June and July. And some guys, man, we got to keep pushing them towards what can they become here in June, July, so that they're ready for August. But hey, they're all very talented, and they've all got their own things that they do well. And it's our job to identify that. And then when we get them out there on the field, that we're putting them in position to have some success, right? Because like all of us in whatever we do, when we have a little success and it tastes good, we want more of it. Well,
Hmm.
if you want more of it, we need to expand that toolbox so that we can get you out there to do more.
You talked about success, and that success on the field is going to show in the NFL draft. 12 guys drafted this year, 23 in the last 2 years. That's a bountiful harvest of NFL talent that you're sending to the next level. Such a fine line between rebuild and reload, and you know what you
Right.
signed up for over there, Steve. And nobody
Yeah.
wants to hear about rebuilding over there, but
Yeah.
essentially in this day and age with the portal, you are building a new team every year. And what pressures come with that, knowing that you've got to figure out that portal and figure out this recruiting thing and NIL all in one?
What was cool, Cedric, for me as a young coach, I've had to tap back into a couple things with Pete Carroll. Um, when that thing started rolling, right? And after year two, Carson Palmer's the first pick of the draft.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then we're in this quarterback battle with Matt Leinart and Matt Castle. And Leinart becomes a starter and he proceeds to, win two national titles, win his own Heisman Trophy, and compete for a third national title. And then here comes John David Booty and Mark Sanchez. And so I learned then, and I didn't know how much I learned then about that ability to reload at that time. And then I caught an unbelievable run that Nick Saban was on at Alabama and what that looked like and what that felt like. And I think we're right in the midst of that process, right? Of a lot of these guys were in that, if not the initial recruiting class, that second one, and then into that third one of like they've grown in this program. We have players on our team who are going to be really significant contributors this fall who their first 2 years of college football have gone to the college football semifinals 2 years in a row. They don't even know Anthony Hill doesn't know any different. Like, oh, that's what you do, right? That's what we do. We bust our butt. We work really
Mhm.
hard. We believe in what the coaches are telling us to do, and if we do it the right way, we'll be ready to go. The difference for those guys now is their role has evolved.
Yes.
Anthony Hill's got to be a leader on this team, right? Arch Manning's now got to be a leader on this team. Okay. Michael Taff has already been in that role. Ethan Burke's got to be a leader on this team. Jelani McDonald's got to be a leader. Trey Wisner's got to be a leader. But they had great models to learn from of what it looked like. And I think with this group, the fun part for me is I think all these guys are chomping at the bit to be those leaders, right?
Right.
A lot of those guys I just referenced are champions.
Hmm.
Trey Wiser was a state champion. Anthony Hill was a state champion. Derek Williams was a state champion. Michael Taff was a state champion. Colin Simmons was a state champion. Like a lot of these guys, that's what they're accustomed to. So this group is not as difficult to feel this idea that of like they're complacent because we haven't achieved the ultimate goal yet, and that's what they're accustomed to. That's what they love competing for. These guys are great competitors, and so now it's just about making sure that we're doing it the right way. And so, I say this all the time about. I knew what I signed up for. You don't take the worst mistake you can make about taking a job at Texas is being like shocked or surprised of what the standard is, right? You better know at the front end about what this place is all about. And so, um, I think that from an organizational standpoint, from a player standpoint, hey, we compete for championships around here. And hey, we won an SEC championship. We fought our tail off last year. We go to overtime. We don't get it done. We want to win that. And we want to win a national championship. And I'm okay saying that. I know a lot of coaches try to shy away from, we just want to be the best team we can be. Yeah, we do because we want to win championships, right? So we need to be the best team that we can be. And so that's what as a competitor, right? That's what we love and that's what we're striving for. But I do think we've got a roster full of players that believe that, especially on the top shelf, right? Those third, fourth year, even some second year players. Now, how quickly can we get these first year players, get some of these transfers on board with that mentality is going to be the key.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that a little bit. You know how you went in the trenches. Every football coach worth his whistle knows that, and
Yep.
especially in the SEC. Well, you lose four offensive linemen, you lose six defensive linemen, some
Right.
great players that get drafted. What's your comfort level as far as where you are on the line of scrimmage on offense and defense?
Yeah, I think one thing that I had to go back into too at my time at Alabama and my time at SC, I always say like history helps you with the future if you know enough history. And one of the things that I don't want to say I'm fighting the narrative with us is, but I think it's important. We're really not that young of a team.
You got experience.
We just have new faces. And
Right.
the beauty of it is a lot of these new faces have been developing in our program. And so whether you're talking about a Trevor Gooseby or a Brandon Baker or an Andre Kojo or a NATO, those guys have been having to go against all those defensive linemen that just went to the NFL or
Yeah.
that just moved on. They've had to compete at a really high level every single day. And Coach Flood's been developing them and Torrey Beckton's been developing them. So I feel very good about that group. Now, granted, there's nothing like game experience.
Mhm.
And so are we going to have some growing pains? Sure we are. I'm not naive to think that we're not going to have some. But that doesn't mean that we have to go out there and play like a bunch of freshmen because we're not. Defensively, I would say the same thing. We were fortunate when we first got here. As I assessed the roster, I felt like we really needed to address the offensive line. And we really needed to, one, get a different body type for what I felt like was needed. And then two, get a skill set and a level of player. When I assessed the defensive line, I said, shoot, the cupboards are pretty good here. I mean, we had some really good players. And Johndre Coburn was a good player. Mora Ojimo was a good player. Tavondre Sweat was a good player. Byron
Mhm.
Murphy was a true freshman at that time, but he was going to be a good player. Alfred Collins was a good football player. Vernon Broughton was a good football player. Those guys were all here. So we didn't really have to go so overboard. Now, I don't think we recruited it really well, and that's on me, right? I just don't think that we nailed the recruiting on the defensive front. And a little bit was that we had some good players already, and it was hard to get a guy to say, "Hey, I want to go do that." When it's like you look up and you're like, "No, already got a bunch of big
Playing
dudes."
time, right?
It kind of worked against us in some capacity, but in this day and age of the portal, and you're able to go get five defensive lineman transfers to come into your program to go along with Alex January, right? To go along with the Melvin Hills, to go along with some of these younger players. Man, it's served really well for us. On the same token, I can point to a Baron Sorrell. Here's a guy that wasn't some five-star player that came into our program, but developed along the way in his journey. Now he's a Green Bay Packer and what that looks like. And sure, that serves as a great model for an Ethan Burke. It serves as a great model for a Colton Vasek. But at the same token, man, we're pretty good on the edges when you look at Colin Simmons, and then you still have Trey Moore that can do both. You have Brad Spence that can do both. You have Zena, who's a tremendous young player for us, and so I feel comfortable at the line of scrimmage. Again, there's going to be some growing pains, some guys playing together for the first time, and how important practice and meetings are to get that line of communication, how important it is to find the right rotation on the defensive front. We know, you guys know, we like to play a lot of guys, but finding that rhythm and that rotation is going to be big for us as well.
Well, before we get you out of here, this schedule, people are saying, "Oh, Texas had it easy last year." They're not saying that. They're not saying
Yeah.
that this year.
Yeah.
I mean, you're at Ohio State, you're at Kentucky, you're at Florida, you're at Mississippi State, you're at Georgia, and then you got those two traditional rivals that just won't go away, OU and A&M. Um, how exciting is it to play that schedule? I know you've probably been up some nights already, but also sending a message early, and that Ohio State game is going to be the most watched game in America, week one.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this in years past. I think we really addressed it last year. There's something about playing a big game in week one or week two because it really helps. And you don't really have to talk to it directly, but it sure helps in June, July, and August when they're hot, they're tired, they're sore. and we got one more period to go. And in the back of their mind, they know they're going to Columbus, right, in August to go
It ain't
play against the
rice. It
defending
ain't
national.
rice. It ain't rice.
It's actually really helpful for me, right? It's one less ass chewing I gotta have in the middle of practice to where because they already know, the leaders already know what that game's going to be about. And again, and I think it's a great measuring stick for us. Whoever wins that game, man, what a feather in their cap, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful down the road for them. But the loser of the game isn't just going to get punished for playing that game. I really think everybody should be playing these games. I'm a total advocate of this. I think is a great barometer for where are we as a program. Where do we need to improve? Where do we need to get better? What does this guy look like in that on that stage in that arena? And then you get something to really build on moving forward. But I don't know of many teams around the country. We're probably going to play against three top 10 teams on the road this year in some pretty hostile environments. When you talk about, Ohio State as the season opener, our SEC opener is at the Swamp in Gainesville, all right, against a really good Florida team, and then we go to Athens, Georgia, to play Georgia. So those are really challenging moments for us. The good thing is I don't have to answer Kurt's questions anymore about are we going to change our routine on the road because we weren't a very good road team early on. Now all of a sudden we have the longest road winning streak in the country. So hopefully we can keep that up and then I don't have to answer those questions in the press conference anymore.
I'm going to ask you about red zone though. So
Say it
Of
again.
course.
still
Say
got
it
that bug to
again.
do. You got that
Say-
fixed. You
Yeah,
got
say it
you
again
got
for the
that
people
fixed,
in the
right?
back, Sark. Say it again for the people in the back. Because Kurt needs to hear that. You need to give him that every now and then.
You got to have one thing you got to work on. In the red zone, that's your area, right?
Always, always. If we didn't have stuff to work on, if the coaches ever came in and said we're good, I'd start to worry because we're never good, right? We're never good, right? Everybody's always hunting us, and I think more than ever, and I love this, quite frankly, like I think our players are really understanding. Like when we pivoted, I think they knew the hate in the Big 12. Like, the Big 12 hates Texas. And then we got into the SEC and it was like, oh crap, the SEC hates us too,
It's
right?
worse.
So this idea of like, man, when you come here, our support is incredible. Our fan base, our donors, like we wear this with pride and it's worldwide. It's the brand is the brand. It's unbelievable. But if you don't get to wear it, you surely don't probably like it a whole lot. And so like the idea that we better be ready and we better be ready to go and that the hate is real,
It
that's
is.
okay. That's why we're here. Like that's the beauty of it all, right? That as a competitor, you want that. And it's like some of the most notorious franchises in professional sports, right? You put on a Lakers jersey, you're going
Yeah.
to get the best shot, right? You put on it those pinstripes with the Yankees, you're going to get their best shot. Nowadays, you put on that Dodger jersey, you're going to get the best shot. And so it just is what it is. I'm sure the Kansas City Chiefs right now are thinking we're always getting everybody's best plays, the player's best effort, but that's what it is when you come here. And so we don't get to pick and choose when we're going to be at our best. We got to be at our best every Saturday. And that's just the way it goes when you come here. But as a competitor, we should want that.
They don't hate teams that are irrelevant, for
No,
sure.
no, we're getting chased every day, and,
Yeah.
and we're still chasing the pinnacle, but we are getting chased every day. I promise you, around the country, there's a lot of coaches and analysts and GAs breaking down Texas film right now, getting ready for the fall. So we better be doing the same. We better be staying a step ahead if we can.
We can't wait to get there.
Me
Absolutely.
either. Let's go. Although I'll take we need this time, but it's exciting, man. I mean, I've done some stuff here the last, few weeks where the coaches are on the road, our guys are off right now, and I got a chance to do some stuff with ESPN and Disney up in New York. This upfront deal where they're promoting their upcoming season, and I was talking to a few folks there. Like as much as we talk about college football and what's wrong and a settlement and NIL and all these things that are happening, the popularity of college football right now is at an all-time high.
Yeah.
Like our
Rising.
sport
Still
is on
rising.
fire right now, and we're right there at the forefront of it all. And it is so cool to be part of this era of college football. Um, that man, I don't take it lightly. I love it. And I love the fact that change is a good thing. As long as we continue to make really good decisions in this time over the next few months, maybe the next 12 months, 18 months, whatever this looks like, that we do it for the betterment of the game and the sport and the student athletes. Because the popularity of that what's going on right now is so good in college football, and the fan bases and just the involvement, to me is really incredible. It used to be the NFL. Everybody talked about the NFL for
Yeah.
12 months. Do you guys ever notice? I mean, they've been brilliant in just how they've broken up the NFL schedule. People are talking about college football almost 12 months a year now
Yeah,
too.
they are.
And that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah.
And it's May, and don't we wish it was August? But it's
Get
cool
here. He'll
to
get here
talk
soon.
ball and look forward to what's going to be another great season. Steve, we appreciate you stopping by, man. It's always good to talk ball, and you got 2 weeks left in your least favorite month, and you can get back to your
Yeah.
guys before you know it. So, man, thanks a lot for
June 1st.
yeah.
I need June 1st to get here. That's when I get them back in that team
There
room.
you go.
It'll
There
be
you
here
go.
before you know it.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate
All right,
it.
y'all. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.